afternoon. I'm Hallie Jackson in Washington. We are coming on the air with breaking news. The Israeli military just moments ago says it's intercepting incoming ballistic missiles from Iran for the first time in months. The Israelis said Iran fired multiple sets of missiles at the country. Iran appears to be retaliating after a strike on the Lebanese capital of Beirut killed at least 2 people and hurt nearly a dozen others. You are seeing some of that aftermath here on screen. The missile attack, the first on Israel since President Trump announced a ceasefire in the war against Iran back in April. The president has been trying to negotiate some kind of a peace deal, some kind of an end to this war, although so far without success. I want to bring in our national security correspondent, Courtney Kube, who is joining us on the phone. Courtney, fill us in. What do we know and what happens from here?
So I think the big question is what happens from here. We know, as you said, that that Iran has fired a series of projectiles, at least ballistic missiles. We're still trying to figure out if there was anything else that they fired at Israel. It does appear that Israel has knocked them down. I've been speaking with U.S. officials, and at this point, there is no indication that there was any U.S. military involvement in shooting down any of those incoming missiles and potentially other projectiles. But the big question right now remains, Hallie, is will, in fact, Israel respond here? As we have seen in recent weeks, there has been this back and forth. And primarily, though, it's between the U.S. military and either the Iranian military or the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. And it's sort of this escalating ladder of activity, right? They're operating in close proximity to one another. They'll push a little bit closer to the other. They'll fly their aircraft a little closer. They'll maybe launch a drone that's a little bit closer to the U.S. military until it leads to a firing back and forth. The big difference in what we're seeing here this afternoon, though, Hallie, is this is Iran firing ballistic missiles at Israel for the first time since the ceasefire, and that is why this is so much different than the U.S. military and the IRGC trading back and forth, including in some cases trading back and forth ballistic missiles in the case of the Iranians.
Courtney, can you stand by for a second? I want to get to our Matt Bradley, who's live for us in the region from Doha. And Matt, there is some reporting from Axios that President Trump spoke with one of their reporters and said to Axios that he is going to call the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, right now and tell him not to strike back. So if, in fact, that is accurate, Matt, it would be, of course, the president getting involved on a personal level after weeks of really stalled negotiations for the potential for a ceasefire or a peace deal, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the president getting involved once again in the Lebanon question, and that's what this really is all about. It is the fact that Israel has continued to press against Hezbollah. This is how this all started. Hezbollah had fired missiles into northern Israel. Israel had fired a missile, or several missiles that caused fatalities into the southern Beirut suburb of Dahia. That is a Hezbollah stronghold. And now the Iranians, who have for the past several months, really ever since the real full-scale fighting between Israel and America on one side and Iran on the other began, have been trying to equate the two, saying that the Lebanon battlefield is the same, is part of the big regional battlefield. And that has been the main sticking point really in just the past couple of weeks, not the past couple of months, over these negotiations that, as you said, they had stalled. And it was the Lebanon question that now has once again become the main fight. So, I mean, what we're seeing now, as Courtney said, the big question is, will Israel respond? And President Trump is once again going to be prevailing on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, probably going to ask him to hold fire, to say we don't want this war to get any worse. These negotiations still have a chance. If Israel is to retaliate, we could once again see going straight back to that tit for tat, back and forth across the entire region. I'm here in Doha in the Gulf, where we've been seeing a lot of fighting, actually, ever since this ceasefire has been put in place. Bahrain and Kuwait have faced the brunt of it twice in the past week. We've seen Bahrain and Kuwait facing Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks. There was one fatality in Kuwait. The civilian airport, the main airport in Kuwait, was almost entirely, at least one part of it, was entirely destroyed. It looks as though that has been totally cleaned up. But now places like here in Qatar, they're girding, waiting for more fight, waiting for the kind of fighting that has really destabilized the global trust in these Gulf economies. economies where the whole world comes to do business. So regardless of what happens tonight, we're going to be seeing a lot of pressure from all sides. The Gulf countries, they want nothing to do with any more of this fighting, and to see more retaliation, to see a blossoming of this war, despite the fact that there is a ceasefire, or in name only. There was a ceasefire at some point a couple of weeks ago in Lebanon. That could make this last for a whole lot longer and cost many more lives.
Matt Bradley in Doha. Courtney, let me go back to you. And can you pick up on the thread that Matt is putting down here? The idea of a ceasefire. Semantics, reality, walk us through it.
Yeah, I think Matt saying that it's a ceasefire name only is exactly perfect. And so basically what we have, there have been so many violations of what would be a ceasefire over the last several weeks that to even say there is a ceasefire is just, it's just a farce at this point, Hallie. What we have here instead is a pause in the major combat operations inside Iran. That maintains. There still has not been a restarting of the major combat operations, but we still have these militaries. Let's take, for instance, the U.S. military and the IRGC. They are still operating in close proximity to one another. They are firing at one another every couple of days at this point. We are seeing what would generally be seen as a violation of the ceasefire. And that's not even talking about what we're seeing in the exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah. Remember, those are two separate ceasefires. The one between the U.S. and Iran was earlier, about 10 days earlier than the one between Israel and Lebanon. But that one has almost never stopped. There has been an almost constant exchanging of fire ever since the announcement of that ceasefire. The real question now is, there is a continuing of fire. At some point, is one side going to say enough is enough, and they're going to call to restart some sort of a major combat operation? It doesn't appear at this point that the U.S. wants to do that, even though we have a constant stream of threats coming from the Secretary of Defense, from the President, saying that they are willing and able and ready to do so. But that really still remains to be seen. And I will say, Hallie, one thing that we have to do right now is just look at the facts. When you look at the facts of the U.S. military, they have more deployed right now than they did before the war started back in February. So if, in fact, the president were to say, that's it, enough is enough with this back and forth, enough is enough with Iran firing missiles at Israel, and decide to restart combat operations, the U.S. could ramp them up extremely quickly, and they even have more there now in the region when it comes to an additional carrier strike group, fresh aircraft and things. They could restart the combat operations very quickly if they wanted to, and they could restart and keep up the tempo that they were at when the combat stopped back in April.
Courtney Kube, thank you very much. Our thanks to Matt Bradley as well. President Trump, for your awareness, has no public events on his schedule today. But, of course, our White House team is monitoring in case we get any reaction from the president to this breaking news. We'll keep you posted online at NBCNews.com and right here on NBC News Now. I'm Hallie Jackson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.